stay. It is a true pleasure to be with all of you here today. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm just excited, pleased as punch to be here. We all know that there is another meeting going on not too far from here. The Dorchester meeting, initiated by former Senator and proud supporter of abortion, Bob Packwood. In 1973, 7 unelected men on the Supreme Court overturned abortion laws in all 50 states, deciding that abortion would be legal for any reason during any time in pregnancy. Let me remind you of a comment that then Senator Packwood said in an interview in 1983, 10 years after those Roe and Doe decisions. He said, quote, "Abortion is an issue that burns real hot, and like any fire that burns red hot, it won't be long before it burns itself out." Senator Packwood is no longer in the Senate, but we are still here. Abortion remains one of the hottest issues in the country. If he hasn't figured it out yet, we're not quitting, and this fire is not burning out. We recently received some encouraging news. Last month, the Guttmacher Institute released a report showing that the numbers of abortion in America has dropped dramatically from an all-time high of 1.6 million in 1990 to a little more than 1 million in 2011. Now that is still more than 1 million too many. But we can be encouraged because more women are choosing life for their babies. In Oregon, you saw some years in the 1990s that had more than 14,000 unborn children losing their lives to abortion. Those numbers dropped to 9,016 in 2012, an amazing decline of almost 40%. The abortion rate, which is the numbers of abortion per 1,000 women of childbearing age, ages 15 to 44, and the abortion ratio, the number of abortions per 1,000 live births, have also decreased. In fact, the abortion rate is at its lowest level ever since 1973. I think there are a number of reasons that more and more women are choosing life. The Right to Life movement has worked to the extent possible allowed by the courts to enact laws that protect unborn children and offer their mothers life-affirming alternatives. Laws enacted in many states have helped immensely to reverse the disturbing trend that is established by Roe. At the federal level, laws like the Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act, enacted in 2003 and upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2007, raised nationwide awareness about the gruesome and deadly reality of late abortion that was allowed under Roe and Doe. It is estimated that the Hyde Amendment, which prevents the use of taxpayer dollars to pay for abortion in the Medicaid program, has saved upwards of 1 million lives since it was enacted in 1976. Abortion remains widely available, but after years of being told that abortion was the best choice, or their only choice, women are learning that there are alternatives to abortion that affirm their lives and the lives of their children. I know legislative efforts in Oregon are difficult, but one day you will pass laws to protect unborn children and their mothers. Because I know you are not going to let the fire burn out. You are not going to quit. In the meantime, you are educating your neighbors, your friends, and your communities about the fact that 2 persons are involved in every abortion. Whether you speak to local organizations and classrooms, whether you distribute literature at a county or state fair booth, write a letter to your editor, you are keeping the picture of that unborn child alive in the public mind. Our opponents would say that very few abortions are done by using the partial birth abortion method, so that couldn't have made a difference on why the numbers of abortions are going down. And yet much of the country was shocked to learn the gruesome reality. The partial birth abortion was delivering a baby, all but the head, sucking out the brain, and then delivering the rest of the baby. So they were thinking, wait a minute, we're talking here not about a blob of tissue, this is a baby with a head and brains. The educational value of that cannot be quantified. Another reason the numbers of abortions are in decline is the use of technology to bring the face of the unborn baby into greater focus. Ultrasound technology has advanced to the point where we can now see the child in amazing 3D and 4D pictures, you know, smiling and pointing the finger, sucking her thumb, or maybe even doing somersaults. So when you're posting a picture of your child or your unborn child on your Facebook page, or posting on Twitter so someone can see it, putting it on your refrigerator, you are helping to make people aware. Again, we're talking about a human being here. Harrison Hickman, a one-time pollster for NRL, stated in 1989, "Probably nothing has been as damaging to our cause as the advances in technology which have allowed pictures of the developing fetus, because people now talk about the fetus in much different terms than they did 15 years ago. They talk about it as a human being, which is not something that I have an easy answer on how to cure." We are now looking, as I said, at the 3D and 4D pictures of unborn children. So technology has certainly made a difference, and it's going to continue to advance. And we certainly cannot overlook the incredible work done by our pregnancy resource centers to help pregnant women during that time of uncertainty, during a time that's probably very frightening for them. The support that these centers provide has made a difference in countless lives. The major overall reason that the number of abortions is declining is you. Your persistence and your determination to keep the issue alive after 41 years of supposedly settled law are making a difference. And in fact, a just released CNN poll shows that almost 60% of Americans believe abortion should be legal either in very few circumstances or not at all. This issue is burning hotter than ever, but it isn't burning out. In politics, there used to be what we call the silly season. It was generally known as the time between a primary and a general election when, you know, the candidates have been settled, but we're not ready to vote yet. And silly things would happen. The public wasn't really paying attention. There seems to be now an ongoing silly season. A new version of this actually started in 2012, and you all know what I'm talking about, the war on women. It is a pleasure to be here today with my fellow warriors in this war on women. You know that you're all engaged in this war, right? If you think that unborn children should be welcomed in life and protected by law, you are waging a war on women. That is what President Obama and his allies would like the country to believe. So let's take a look at this so-called war. Abortion is the least regulated invasive procedure in the country. Almost half of the states have no laws requiring that women be fully informed about the abortion procedure, its potential risks, or alternatives that are available. This is something that is required for every other medical procedure, but not abortion. But if you think abortionists should have to give this information to women before they make an irreversible life or death decision, you are somehow waging a war on women. Our opponents fight informed consent requirements because they are afraid that if the mother gets relevant information or sees her baby on an ultrasound, she'll change her mind. Now, I'm sorry, I thought women had the right to change their mind. We do that all the time. But they want to rush that pregnant woman through the abortion facility and get that abortion taken care of before she can change her mind. That is not pro-woman, and yet we are the ones that are supposedly waging the war on women. Planned Parenthood is the largest provider of abortions in America, killing more than 300,000 unborn children each year. Almost half of their $1 billion annual income comes from federal, state, and local grants and contracts, taxpayer dollars. Planned Parenthood is not content to just have women walk through their doors. Some of their facilities are now offering so-called webcam abortions. They will find an abortionist who will sit in his office at a computer, and he will talk to a woman in another city, possibly even in another state, via the computer. And he'll talk to her for a few minutes, and then he will push a button on his computer. It will open a drawer in the room where she is sitting. Inside that drawer is the chemical cocktail that will kill her unborn child. The chemical abortion is a two-drug process. The first kills that developing little baby. The second expels that dead baby from her uterus. This is a dangerous abortion method. Thousands of women have suffered complications, including prolonged pain, infection, severe hemorrhaging, and incomplete abortion, and in some cases, death. The doctor who presumably knows what's happening and could maybe help with those complications could be hundreds of miles away. And as expected, our opponents will fight any attempt to regulate webcam abortions. Even though the woman's health and indeed her life could be in danger, the important thing is that she has the right to kill her baby. If you do not think an abortionist should be able to prescribe a chemical abortion to a woman who is in another city, maybe 100 miles away, with him not being available, or if there are any complications, you're the one waging the war on women. Most teenage girls are not able to handle a big decision like abortion by themselves. But abortion advocates fight any type of regulation that would involve mom or dad. When a 15-year-old girl is lying on her bed at night crying about that abortion, these so-called advocates are not there to help her, to hold her hand. But if you want mom or dad to be involved in that decision, you are waging a war on women. Unborn babies at 20 weeks can feel pain. So far, 10 states have banned abortions on babies who can feel pain. But if you think that they should be protected from abortion, you're waging a war on women. Last fall, California adopted a law allowing non-physicians to perform first trimester surgical abortions. For those who think abortion should be safe, how does reducing the required standard of medical care help? How is that pro-woman? Abortion advocates who supposedly care about women fight regulations requiring abortion facilities to meet the most basic health and safety standards of medical clinics, such as hallways being wide enough to get a gurney through in case an ambulance has to be called, fire extinguishers, oxygen tanks. But requiring basic medical standards is supposedly anti-woman. But if we support those measures for safety and cleanliness for the woman, we are the ones waging a war on women. You're all familiar, I'm sure, with Kermit Gosnell, the abortionist in Philadelphia. He was convicted last year of killing babies born alive by severing their spinal cord. He would snip the back of their neck. He was also found guilty of involuntary manslaughter for the death of a woman who died from a drug overdose while undergoing an abortion. There were horribly unsanitary and unsafe conditions at his Philadelphia office. The grand jury report went into detail about cat feces on the stairs, blankets with blood on them being given to the women, instruments being used on multiple patients without being cleaned between abortions, many other horrible conditions. This is a great example of abortion advocates being more concerned about keeping abortion legal and available than its safety. The National Abortion Federation is a professional association of abortion practitioners. That's the way they describe themselves, Professional Association of Abortion Practitioners. Kermit Gosnell asked the NAF if he could join. They sent an inspector into his clinic. She went back and reported that that was the worst place she had ever seen, and they denied him membership. But they didn't report him to anybody. The Pennsylvania Medical Board, the American Medical Association, the Pennsylvania Health Department, they knew the conditions under which women were getting abortions, and they did and said nothing. The president and chief executive of Planned Parenthood Southeastern Pennsylvania admitted that they knew about these terrible conditions at his clinics, but they did nothing to stop him. They didn't care about cleanliness or the safety for the women. They wanted to make sure that the sacred cow of abortion wasn't hindered in any way. And yet, we are the ones that are supposedly waging this war on women. In 2012, the United States House of Representatives voted on a bill to ban sex selection abortions. Now, when a couple or a mother decides that, usually it's a couple, decides that they really want a baby of a certain gender, usually if they're going to get an abortion, it's because the baby is a girl. A disproportionate number of babies killed because they are the wrong sex are the girls. But if you do not think unborn baby girls should be killed merely because they're girls, you're waging a war on women. Abortion advocates aren't content to push abortion in this country. They support it overseas as well. When President Obama took office, he restored United States funding to the United Nations Population Fund, which supports China's population control program, which relies heavily on forced abortion. Stories abound of pregnant women in China who are dragged out of their homes, taken to so-called family planning centers against their wishes to have an abortion forced on them. Forced abortions among women who violate the one-child policy in China are commonplace and sometimes carried out up to the 9th month of pregnancy. They can be so violent that the women die along with their full-term babies. Now, a couple of years ago, our Vice President, Joseph Biden, was over in China, and he gave a speech in which he stated that he wouldn't second-guess their population control program, that he fully understands it. And I have to admit that when I heard that, I thought we need to introduce this man to the Wizard of Oz. Because he needs a heart, a brain, and a backbone. You would think that abortion advocates who claim to support women would be screaming at the top of their lungs that the Chinese program is wrong. That's the war on women. But President Obama, his administration, with the support of pro-abortion groups like Planned Parenthood and NREL, encouraged the program by financially supporting the United Nations Population Fund with our tax dollars. If you have any concern for the unborn child, if you show any interest in limiting abortion in any way, you are waging a war on women. At least that's what President Obama and his minions want the country to think. The bottom line for abortion advocates is making sure that abortion remains legal for any reason with no limits whatsoever. Somehow the unborn child has become the enemy that must be destroyed at all cost. The war on women would be funny if it wasn't so serious. Because we want the country to remember that there is a small, innocent, helpless baby whose very life is in danger does not make us anti-woman. There is a war on women, but we are not the ones waging it. Right. Those working against women are the abortion advocates who think that the only way a woman can succeed is to kill her own child. If abortion advocates really cared about women, they wouldn't be trying to shut down pregnancy resource centers who are offering help to those women who choose life. They would be willing to tell the mothers that there are consequences, sometimes lifelong consequences, to that abortion. My heart breaks when I think of 56 million unborn children in this country who have been killed by abortion. But I hurt just as much for their mothers, the women who were involved in that process. I've met too many women who years later are still struggling with that decision. Sometimes it's physical, but often it's emotional or psychological. It's not a natural instinct for a woman to kill her child. Women who've had an abortion or abortions are all around us. They are in our workplaces, our churches, our schools, and maybe even in our families. It's very likely that there are women here today who've had an abortion. I thank you for being here. Whether you have told anyone or not, you are among friends. And whether a woman is considering an abortion or has had an abortion, we open our arms and our hearts to her. The pro-life movement is the movement of love. We work to save people we will most likely never meet, whether those persons are unborn babies saved from abortion, or elderly and disabled persons saved from euthanasia and the oncoming rationing of health care under Obamacare. They may never know that our efforts and our intervention made it possible for them to live. That is a beautiful expression of love. And that love is also endless in that we will never give up. We sometimes have setbacks, but we keep on keeping on because love doesn't give up, it doesn't end. And we know it won't end because young, energetic voices are joining with us to be a voice for the voiceless, to keep the fire burning. In greater and greater numbers, the post-Roe generations, our younger people, are rejecting the idea of abortion on demand. Polls in recent years show that younger people are increasingly pro-life. A few years ago, the Seattle Times did a story titled "Youth Movement Against Abortion," They cited a Pew Research Center poll showing that 18 to 29-year-olds are consistently more likely than the general adult population to favor strict limits on abortion. Gallup found support for making abortion broadly illegal growing fastest among young adults. Senator Packwood would likely be disappointed by this, but no one should be surprised. The post-Roe generation has lost more than 56 million peers. Brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, neighbors. Between 1/4 and 1/3 of their generation is missing. They have seen and experienced the impact of abortion on their peers, and they are joining the fight to protect the next generation from the same fate. The Right to Life movement offers these young generations hope, while the pro-abortion movement only offers further destruction of their generation and future generations. Now, I have to admit, I actually feel sorry for Senator Packwood. I was looking at a Dorchester video that Gail had pointed out to me, so I found it on the internet. He was in the United States Senate for almost 30 years, and he's been involved in many issues. But in a promo video for the Dorchester Conference to celebrate its 50 years, Senator Packwood stated that the abortion resolution adopted at the conference stands out as the most memorable moment for him. Can you imagine looking back at a career of 50 years and thinking that the highlight of your legacy involves the deaths of millions of children? How much better it is for all of us here to have joy in your heart and peace in your soul, knowing that you worked to cherish life, to protect life, to offer hope and encouragement, not death and despair. We know we still have a long road ahead of us, but we will continue to keep the fire going, to carry light to a darkened world. May God bless you as you continue this work of love. Thank you.